Welcome to The Wealth Approach, where money talk is anything but boring. Here, budgeting doesn't mean giving up your latte, and building wealth is something we do with heart, humor, and a whole lot of real-life stories. Join hosts Megan Kowalski and Kristin Donnelley, wealth advisors, moms, and your monthly guides to smarter finances, as they share honest conversations, practical tips, and strategies that make sense for real life. So grab your coffee, your car keys, or your favorite cozy spot, and let's talk money.
Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Approach. My name is Megan Kowalski. I am partner and managing director here at the Learner Group, and I also happen to be a mother of three littles under 3. I'm joined here today with Kristin, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Kristin Donnelley, advisor at the Learner Group, and I'm also mother of 3, 2 working adults and 1 who is in her final stretch of college. Whew.
And the funny thing about Kristin and I is we both have boy, boy, girl sequence. It's just mine are on the beginning stretch of it and hers are on the back end stretch of school.
Mhm.
But we thought since summer is unfortunately coming to an end and we're starting to probably get the school scaries, that we would cover what we're calling backpacks and budgets for families and how to afford childcare for basically babies through high school.
Mhm.
So today we'll get started with just some of our tips and tricks that we would recommend with kind of where to start when you're being confronted with what may feel like a very daunting task with how you're going to afford um, kids once they kind of start at either daycare or with maybe private school, and just kind of where you should start some of your research. So I'll start with my biggest tip or hack that I sometimes cover with families that are thinking about starting a family, and that is think about budgeting for childcare before the baby even arrives. So I know it sounds crazy, but when you think about the sheer cost of kids, especially if you have to go the daycare route before they start like kindergarten or pre-K even, the cost can be almost like double or triple a mortgage, depending on how many kids you have in daycare at once. And so what we often run into with families is once they get to that phase, they might be able to afford that, but they get pretty down about their current investments at that time because they're not able to contribute to their investment goals like they were able to previously. So when I say budget for them before they arrive, I just actually mean kickstart or over contribute to your investments or your portfolio early because you may have to pull back that temporarily for like the first 3 to 5 years while your kids are young. Just because, I mean, you have to, they're here and they need someone to help look after them for that period of time. And then you won't feel as down about having to pull back some of your investment savings.
Mhm.
And Kristin, do you have any tips or tricks you wanted to add there, or do you want to go into our next one about maybe what could be available at the state level for certain individuals?
Well, why don't we talk about FSAs?
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
start there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, FSAs are a program that allow you to budget for like early childhood care, but they're a specific type of FSA. And so they're dependent care FSAs. And you can contribute to those through your employer if your employer offers it. So that's what you want to do is
Mhm.
you want to check out if your employer offers that. If you're single, you can contribute up to $2,500 per year. And if you are a married couple, $5,000 per year. But FSAs are really tricky because they will expire at the end of the year. You will lose the contribution if you don't use it, but it can be used for a lot of daycare purposes. So this is one, especially for really young children, that is an excellent savings tool. But
Definitely.
and so what is the advantage of an FSA? Well, an FSA means you make a contribution and you don't pay tax on it. So it's tax deductible,
Mm-hmm.
state and federal tax deductible. So I think there are only 3 states that it's not state tax deductible. California, of course, is one, and Alabama might be another. But it's a great tool and one that most people don't understand because it's confusing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of little rules about it. And so it can seem a little overwhelming, but your advisor can definitely help you, get into this one.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually recently just reviewed this with a family who has a baby in daycare right now and they're expecting, so they'll have two at the same time next year. And we were kind of covering, what their options are. Their employer does have childcare FSA, which is great. The one nuance that they forgot, and I'm so glad it came up in the meeting, was they were associating it with HSA, thinking that it rolled to next year. And since they know next year is going to be a pretty hefty bill with 2 kids at once, they were almost saving for it. And I had to remind them that FSA is, again, a use it or lose it. So make sure if you do deploy any money into the childcare FSA that you use everything by year end. And it has to be the childcare FSA. There are a few different FSA options. There's a transportation one and also a healthcare one. So it does have to be the child care dependent FSA. Another cool nuance with the child care dependent FSA is it doesn't have to just be used for daycare or when your kids are like pre kindergarten. You can also use it for certain after school programs. Certain summer camps also can qualify for those funds and just different dependent care. So it's something that if you do have situations like that arise, it's something to look into and always, again, think ahead because you have to sign up for them in the previous year. So if you can try to get ahead of that, at least you're saving taxes on that expense.
Yeah, and so I mean, just to frame it right, this program is really designed for young children care. And as you say, some after school camps, summer camps, day camps. But I mean, the intent of this is kind of young children
Mhm.
care, and which is a little bit different than a couple of the others that we're going to be talking about.
Yes.
Mhm.
Another great place to start is just review what's available in your state. So I currently reside in Florida, and there are some cool programs that Florida has for VPK for age 4. A lot of schools are just fully covered. So again, that's just something to make sure you're looking into. And then some states even have different like grant or voucher programs where they will cover a dollar amount or a certain amount for private school so that you have the option depending on where you live, especially if maybe it's in rural areas where there's not a lot of options for school, where it's just basically dollars towards private school that you can use. So again, in Florida, I believe it's 8 or 9,000 per child that you can use. And some of these nuances you have to be careful with, check with your accountant or your advisor. Some of them have income earn out. So if you make over a certain amount, then your family won't qualify. But again, in Florida, they don't have that nuance. So just every child has up to that dollar amount for private school if you want to look at private school as an option for K through 12. So always, always, always check with your state and see what programs they might have available that are nuanced to your state specifically.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then do you want to cover a little bit of our next category, which is 529?
Yeah, so 529s, it really bleeds in perfectly to 529. So in 2000, 529s are generally thought of as college savings programs. And so in some states, you get a state tax deduction for a contribution to a 529, and you don't get a federal uh, tax exemption. But the beauty of a 529 is that they grow tax free. And if it's a qualified education expense, when you withdraw the money, you don't pay any tax. So, in a way, it's kind of like a retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but In 2018, the federal government allowed 529s to be used for K through 12 education. Now, 529s are state-run programs, and so a lot of states have not complied with the rule yet. And so some states, you can today use 529s for K through 12 education, like private school education. Some you can't at this point. It's not a qualified expense in some states, like in Illinois, it's not a qualified expense.
Hmm.
But the law in 2018 allowed this. So hopefully these states will be moving towards adopting it. Now, in general, what the federal law says is you can use up to $10,000 to pay for K through 12 um, private school education. And so it's not unlimited, it's $10,000. And,
And that's per year, right?
per year.
Per
Yeah,
year.
per year. But the really interesting thing about 529s is that for every beneficiary, you can have a big dollar amount balance in 529 cumulative. So, like a grandparents could start at 529, your parents could start at 529 and
Mhm.
make contributions. And for any one beneficiary, you can have in the state of Illinois up to $500,000 of contributions. So there's also a great way to superfund these. And so using the annual exclusion, for example, let's say a grandparent or a parent
Mhm.
can pre-fund 5 years of contributions up to $95,000 in 2025 that you
Mhm.
can put into a 529 account, and then that money can start growing tax-free. You can also have an advisor manage that account. So there are a lot of great options, and you have to check with your state, but you might be able to use a portion of that for private school expenses. And actually, 529s are very broad in what they considered qualified expenses. It can be electronics, it can be tuition, it can be room and board if it's a private school, I mean, so it's tutoring, so it's very broad, the amount of money that you can use. So it's another great option, but you need to see what the rules are in your state.
Definitely. And the other cool thing about 529s that changed recently is a lot of people get nervous about overfunding these just because if you don't use it for a qualified expense, historically, you have to pay a penalty on the end if you wanted to take that out. So there's been nuances previously where you can roll it between family members, which a lot of people do. But another
Mhm.
new thing that just rolled out was you can also roll a portion of it into a Roth IRA afterwards. You still have the annual contribution limit that you have to work with, and I think it maxes out at like 35,000 now. We'll see if that changes in the future. But that's another nice nuance with 529s that's changed recently that makes them a little bit more attractive as well. And again, if
Yeah,
you're worried about overfunding and you do happen to have your kids in private school, these could be an option in your state. So just make sure to review the plan and see if that is the case.
yeah. 30 states allow using your 529 for private schools
Awesome.
expenses. Yeah.
And then also kind of staying on course with the K through 12, we have the Coverdell ESA accounts. So do you want to cover a little bit about just high level, what is a Coverdell ESA compared to a 529?
Okay, so just like all these other types of accounts, it's a tax advantaged way of savings.
Hmm.
And so the Coverdell has an income limit. So you can limit out of being able to contribute to a Coverdell. And it is $2,000 per year that you can save in this Coverdell account per beneficiary. So if you have 3 kids, it's $6,000. And that is, again, tax advantaged growth, pretty broad usage of qualified expenses. But one of the really interesting ways of using Coverdell is that you can have like other people contribute to a Coverdell account as well. So, like if a grandparent had 10 grandchildren, they could contribute to the Coverdell account for each of the grandchildren. So you can have Coverdell accounts, unlimited Coverdell accounts that you can contribute to, and you can have unlimited accounts that you're the beneficiary of. So if you have enough people that want to contribute to your education, they can contribute to those. And again, tax advantaged growth and pretty broad usage for
Definitely.
educational expenses.
And then again, just the nuance there is they do have income restrictions. So you or your spouse could earn out as a household to being able to contribute. But this is where if you do have other family members or grandparents maybe that are before their required minimum distribution
Mhm.
phase and kind of like lower cash flow or income years that might want to contribute, this could be a good option for that as well to explore.
Yeah, definitely.
And while we're on the grandparent or other family
Hmm.
members, so this is just something that maybe not everyone is fully aware of. So we always kind of like to illustrate it as well. But grandparents, if you are interested in participating in helping pay for education, whether that be K through 12 or whether that be later on, um, there and you're especially in a taxable estate, this is for you. So this is where um, if you pay for healthcare or education expenses directly, so you'd have to be paying the school directly, but it wouldn't dip into your annual or your lifetime exemption or exclusion for gifting. So you technically can go over the annual amount if you're also happen to be gifting to them or your lifetime. It won't dip into that either. So that's another cool nuance just to be aware of, especially if it's something that you already were interested in, then maybe just carving out a side account on your own and then paying directly so that you don't have to dip into either of those pools
Hmm.
that you were previously looking into.
Yeah, there's no gift like the gift of education.
For sure.
Hmm.
Well, we hope this helped today. We again are starting to get the summer scaries winding down. I don't know if you can see all the toys in the background, but we're
Hmm.
really excited for school to be back.
Hmm.
We hope this helps with your financial planning around littles because we know it does get a little expensive, but there are some cool tips and tricks and hacks that can help minimize some of that.
And Megan, it can be a little overwhelming for people who are trying to balance all of this on their own. So talk to your advisor because they're the ones who know all of these tips and tricks and can coordinate the ones that work for you.
Definitely. Yeah,
Mhm.
especially with all these nuances. Like there's income earnouts here, but not at this state program. And also we will, as advisors, we would also probably want to coordinate with your accountant as well, just to make sure we're really buttoned up and getting what works best for your family. But
Mhm.
that's where use your resources, use the people available in your life that can help you through this because it's not an easy task. But you want to save every dollar where you can, especially when life starts getting expensive with them.
Mhm. Yep, that's
All
for sure.
right. Well, thanks for joining, and we will see you next month.
Bye.